if you haven't found me on social media at all, just to give you a little bit of my background, I run a social media account called The Strategic Classroom. And in the last 2 years, a little over 2 years now, my community has grown to 250,000 educators over TikTok and Instagram. So my TikTok account has about 140,000 followers. Instagram, I'm at 105,000. And then my email list has grown alongside that too. And it's currently sits around 16,000. And those numbers are amazing, but how did we get there? So I started on TikTok in March of 2022. And when I started on TikTok, I kind of just felt like, let me just see what this is about. I had been on Instagram, like I said, for about 3 years, and I was so exhausted from trying to create this hyper curated content that took me forever to make and was just not fun. I hated making reels because I didn't like dancing. I didn't really understand how to do it. I didn't think I was good at it. It never got seen by anybody. And so I went over to TikTok, and one thing I immediately noticed was that what I was seeing on TikTok was people were just talking, right? They would turn on their camera, they would talk. It wasn't very curated. And I thought, let me try here and see what happens. And so what I did is I committed to posting for 30 days straight, one time a day. And I went viral around day, I don't know, I think I looked it up like 21. And I went viral for the silliest video. I had baby spit up on me, and I was making a joke about how teachers don't, somebody had made a piece of content about how tech companies feeding you breakfast, lunch, and dinner is insidious because it means that they want to keep you there longer. And I made a joke about how, as a teacher, I was lucky to get a lifesaver, telling me thank you for being a lifesaver, that those were our perks. And that video got 500,000 views, and I started gaining followers over on TikTok. In June of last year, so June of 2023, I was kind of like, I haven't been posting on Instagram, but let's see what happens if I take these videos that I'm posting on TikTok and I start bringing them over to Instagram. And what I found was in 8 months of posting on Instagram, so coming over from TikTok, just pulling over that content, I grew by 80,000 followers on Instagram with only 10 pieces of Instagram native content. So every other thing I had posted was filmed on TikTok, brought over into Instagram. I threw some Instagram text on it, and my account just started growing. For Strategic Classroom, my account exists. The work that I do, all of the courses and things that I put out exists to help teachers who are passionate about the work they do stay in the profession. I am a strong believer that there are great teachers that leave because they are burnt out. And I know that by bringing in time management, productivity, all of that, I can help great teachers do their work more efficiently so they have time and energy for themselves outside of teaching. So that's the work that I do for Strategic Classroom. And January of last year, I started teaching teacherpreneurs and teacher creators how to create authentic content that serves, sells, and connects on Instagram and TikTok. So I do that through my other platform, which is Jen Manley Creates. So that's also on Instagram as well. Now, today we're talking about how do we make content that serves, sells, and connects, gets people to stop their scroll, but does so very quickly, right? So the thing that I find when I work with teacher creators, teacherpreneurs, is that you're not just a teacherpreneur. Most people are not just creating resources. They're also working as a teacher or working in a different full-time job, or they're a stay-at-home mom and they're also creating resources at home. And so asking people to spend an hour on content every day makes no sense because it doesn't fit into your full life. So today we're going to talk about how do we make scroll stopping content that both grows and sells on your account. And how do we do that very quickly? How can we make content a lot more approachable? So I like to call this content that does both. It's content that grows your audience and sells. And this is so important because we can keep an audience of 300 people and maybe people will buy from that. But really our goal is we want to expand and grow our footprint so that we're getting in front of new people all of the time, right? So we're increasing leads, we're also increasing sales. When I think about that, I think about several golden rules. So every time we make a piece of content from now on, we're going to make sure that it follows a few different, they're rules, but they're really guidelines. The first is that even if somebody does not buy from your content, it should be valuable to them. So one thing that I see a lot from teacher creators, from TPT sellers, is that content is really just selling a product. It's buy my XYZ bundle. Uh, if you want this, buy this resource. And the problem with that is that that does not prompt somebody to save, share, or follow you, right? It's essentially like looking at a bulletin board. We want content that we create to provide value, even if somebody doesn't buy. The reason for this is because when a piece of content is valuable, it is also providing an opportunity for people to share your work. It's providing an opportunity for people to see you as the expert for whatever you sell, right? So for example, every single piece of content that I put out is going to be providing a solution for a teacher who is trying to work fewer hours. I'm always going to sell on the back end. I always want to offer my course or my digital resources that's going to help a teacher do that, that's going to make it easier or quicker for them to do that. But I want them to be able to look at that piece of content, get help from it, get value from it, and then either feel compelled to share it, to save it, or to follow me, right? Because they know that I'm an account that's super valuable. When I think about that, there are three categories of content that I say, this is what makes a piece of content valuable. Because it's not just giving tips and tricks. And this is something that, again, I think we see a lot of, right? 3 ways to do XYZ, 3 tips to streamline your classroom, right? That is value content, but there are other ways to provide value too. The first is to help people feel deeply seen. This is what I call me too content. This is my bread and butter content. If you go to my account, and I'm going to show you some examples, you will see a ton of content where I am describing my experience as a teacher, and a teacher reads that content and feels like, oh my gosh, I can picture myself exactly right there, right? I'm painting the picture of me sitting in the corner of my classroom, trying to hide away so that nobody bothered me during prep time. That is me too content. A teacher reads that and says, oh my gosh, I know exactly what that's like. I do that all the time. The second way that we can provide value is creating a space where teachers can connect. So this is where we're creating conversations. This is where opinion content comes in, right? So where we might put an opinion out there that we have, it might be divisive. People are going to be on either side, but we're creating a space where teachers can talk in our comments and bring up different ideas that they have. This is one reason that I think I've grown so quickly on both TikTok and Instagram, because I view my comment section as a PLC. I want people to come in and I want them to have different opinions than I do. I am okay with teachers coming in and disagreeing with me respectfully, right? But I want that. I want my comment section to be a place where teachers feel comfortable to come have conversations about education. And then the third way we can give value is that kind of traditional value content, giving them an immediately actionable tip or strategy. And the key here is we're giving them one immediately implementable tip or strategy that they're going to use in their classroom tomorrow, right? Because then they see the value that they get from you and they're more likely to come back. Okay. So we're going to do a brainstorm. If you have the workbook, there's a spot in the workbook for this. And what I would love you to do is I'm going to give you just a few minutes to pick one or more of these to reflect on. Bullet points are totally fine. We're going to use these a little bit later to give you some content to help you create some value content. So the first thing is I want you to pick something that you're trying to sell. It could be either your bestseller or it could be something that maybe you're really proud of but doesn't sell well. Okay, so have a product in mind or products in mind. And if you have that, give me a thumb up. See some thumbs. Cool. All right, so the questions you're going to answer, you can pick one or more of these. I'm going to give you about, we'll call it like 4 minutes. What is your ideal buyer currently experiencing that is either a negative, desire, or need? This is the Me Too content. So what are they currently experiencing that is either a negative, a desire, or a need that ideally would be solved by your product? The second question, or like second group of questions you can answer, is what is a conversation that your ideal audience wants to have? This could also be something that they care deeply about, or opinions that you have that you feel like your ideal audience has an opinion on too. And then the third question that you can choose to reflect on for this is what is a tip or strategy that you can share that aligns with your product? One thing that I want to point out here is a lot of times when I work with TPT sellers, they are afraid of giving too much away. One thing that I want you to hear is that we can giving away a little bit, giving that one tip actually makes your product more valuable, right? We're not giving away the whole solution, but helping them to see the value and directly tying that to your product makes your product more valuable because they've seen the transformation. They see the value in it. So pick one or more of those. We'll do about 4 minutes. And then I would love to have you share one of them in the chat. That'll give me a good indicator of when to move on. All right, we'll take about 4 minutes. Okay, so rule number 2 is that you want to serve first and sell last. Serve first, sell last. So the way that this looks on my content is I will do my post. If it's a carousel post, right? Let's say it's 6 slides. The first 5 slides are all value. And then on the very last slide, I will pitch whatever I'm selling. The reason I do this is because the game, especially on Instagram, is reach, right? The game is reach. You want it to get past your core group of people that are seeing all of your stuff. And the way to do that, the best way to do it is to get shares, to make your content valuable so people engage with it. And then they see it as valuable in and of itself, and they are compelled to share it. So this piece of content is a sales piece of content, and it was shared 547 times because the premise of the content wasn't around selling. It wasn't just, here's my time back starter pack, please buy it. It was, and the time back starter pack, just to give some like a little bit of background, was a resource collection. It was essentially a searchable resource bundle. And it was a $7,500 launch in 10 days of a $27 to $47 product, right? Because of shareable content. So when we serve first and sell last, you still are going to sell, but we're getting follows, shares, saves, comments because we're giving value. So this one was one, the value of this was Me Too content, right? People felt deeply seen. They shared it with other teachers. And like I said, it's a very shared post. Another thing to think about is that our goal here is to aim for community, not bulletin board. So this is a mistake that a lot of teacher sellers make. They post, and I made this. This is my example content. I had this cool boundary settings for educators workshop. This was the post. It's a 3-part carousel. Nobody is sharing that. It's not interesting. Nobody probably swiped past the first slide. It got, I think, a total of 30 likes, which is very low for me, very low, 30 likes. No shares, no saves, no comments, right? Because it looks like a sales post. People are scrolling past their feed. When they are scrolling and they're looking, you have about 1 to 3 seconds to capture their attention. If it looks like a sales post, they scroll right along. People are very savvy. They don't really want to be sold to. So if we're trying to sell on social media, we also have to be savvy, right? We want to sell, but we want to package it in a way where the content in and of itself is entertaining. So the different example here is this is a B-roll reel. If you're not familiar with B-roll reels, it's just passive video on the background and some text on the screen. So this one, I wish more teachers understood that you don't need to work 50+ hour weeks in order to serve your students well. This video performed super well, right? Because I got really specific. Working 50+ hour weeks, that's something my ideal audience struggles with. That is them, 50, 60-hour weeks. And they want to serve students well. Like my ideal audience are people who are working a lot because they care deeply about the kids. They want to work less, but they don't want to sacrifice their effectiveness. Okay, so that is speaking directly to them. So goal here is community, not bulletin board. We still want to serve. You want to make sure that you make it so good that they can't help but share it. This post is a good example of that, where this post reached 85,000 accounts, primarily non-followers, right? Because it was shared. It was shared so much. So the goal here is, how do we make content that people want to share? And the way we make it shareable is through value, right? Me Too content, tip content, or community building content. The goal is niche viral, not all the way viral. Has anybody gone full-blown viral? You've had a video or a piece of content hit more than 50,000 people. Yeah. What did you encounter? If you have, you can share out. We don't have to do this on chat. What did you experience? Was it all good?
No, it's definitely not all good.
Yeah. Mhm.
Even the most benign, silly things you share that for some reason take off, you still get all that hate.
Pieces of content get 4.9 million views, 4.9 million. And you know what? It made me some money, but it was really draining on my mental health, because once your content goes beyond your people, especially teaching related content, everybody has an opinion on education, right? And they feel entitled to express it. So all of that to say, the goal is niche viral. How do we get 30 to 50,000 views? How do we get, maybe depending on what you consider your niche to be, it might be 100,000 views, right? But like, how do we get to where we are reaching new people in our audience, but we're not necessarily reaching people who have nothing to do with education? So the goal is niche viral, not all the way viral. And that's an important thing to note, because a lot of times when I work with teachers, they're like, oh man, I would love to get 100,000 views. I'd love to get 1 million views. And what I need you to hear is that it's actually very easy to make a piece of content that gets 100,000 views if you're willing to be a little bit rage baity, right? You can say something that has nothing to do with the work that you do and get 100,000 views because it's rage baity, right? You say something to intentionally make people mad. You could do that, but that's not actually your goal. Your goal is to reach more of your people. It's to grow your audience of people who want the solutions that you provide, right? The goal here is niche viral, not all the way viral. The other piece of this is that if you're looking to grow a following, our goal here is to start narrow to get our first 10,000 followers and to keep growing. And if you're listening to that and you're like, I have 100 followers, like 10,000 seems wild, that means that you're still in this phase, right? So a lot of times when teachers and teacher creators are trying to grow, one of the first things they do is they're like, oh, well, let me just go broader. I'm just going to make content about teaching in general instead of making content. I create preschool resources. And instead of creating content for preschool teachers, I'm just going to create content for teachers in general because I'll grow more. And that's actually not what happens, because when we go broad, specifically when we have, when we're trying to grow from a smaller audience to like a medium-sized audience, we don't actually serve anybody well. When you stay narrow, you're more likely to reach people who are within your niche, and then you'll continue to grow, because the way that social media algorithms work is by using essentially a ring. So what they do is they test your content with the people who already follow you, who engage with your content the most. If it does well, it pushes it out to the next ring, and so on. So you can think of it like a tree ring. So when we are trying to grow, especially when you have a small to medium-sized audience, staying specific is your cheat code. So when I think about specificity, I this is what I consider to be speaking the language of your ideal audience, right? How can you speak so that they are like, is this person inside my head? Like, I don't understand how you knew that this is what I was feeling. So for example, my content, like I said, is about teachers who work too much and want more time for their family, their friends, etc., right? So I could say, you're exhausted. Or I could say, when you get home from school, you have to spend 10 minutes sitting in your car in silence to decompress before you can take on the rest of your life. Way more specific, right? Way more, oh yeah, I can see myself in that exact situation. With TPT sellers, something we see all the time, it boosts student engagement. An activity so good that students will be begging to use the same structure every time you review for a unit test. And we could even get more specific with that based on what you sell. So what I would love to know is somebody give me, you can do it in the chat or you can come off mute. I want to know what you sell. So it could be a specific product, right? What you're selling and what problem does it solve for your audience, for the person who's going to buy it. One thing that I think is really important is to sell based on the problem you solve, not the cost. So a lot of times, right, especially during a sale, TPT sale, it's like all of my stuff is 60% off. People still need to know why they need to buy it, right? Like, yes, it's wonderful to have an amazing sale, but like the whole of TPT is on sale. So why are they looking for your product over somebody else's? The other thing that this helps with is if you're creating content, the hope is that people will find your content later. And that is what happens. And they might find it when a sale is not going on. And we still want them to understand the value beyond just it being on sale, right? Some ways we can get specific quickly. Thinking about the teacher who would benefit from the product. What are they currently doing, saying, or feeling in their classroom? You can do bullet points. There's space in that workbook for you to do that. What will their thoughts, feelings, actions, or classroom look like after you use that product? So bringing in that contrast. We then can use that specificity inside of some frameworks. So talking head videos, that's when you're just face to the camera talking. When I do talking heads, I really like to use I. Storytelling content performs really well because authentic content is on the up on all of the apps. So one framework you can use, I remember when I blank, this is something the teacher was doing that's not so good. Then you talk about what that looks like in your classroom. Then I realized that I needed to, what you changed, and then we can talk about our solution. We can use B-roll, like I said earlier, that's when there's video in the background, text on screen, or a carousel, how I went from blank, whatever that specific current item they're feeling is, to blank. So painting the picture of how we went from the less desirable place to the desirable place, tying it directly to what your product is. And then you've probably seen some of these. I will tell you, the POV B-rolls drive me bananas because 90% of the time it's not actually a point of view. And that's my millennial complaint. But if you do it correctly, it can actually be a POV. You also don't have to say POV. So POV, if you don't know, point of view, you're a blank, how your ideal audience identifies, who wants blank, what their future outcome is, and then you find my account. This is what we call calling all content. This is just establishing you as I am for this person, right? So this kind of content, I wouldn't do this format every single time. I have a bunch of these, but this type of content performs really well within the algorithm because it's short and sweet. And if people see it, they're likely to follow you if they relate to whatever that identifier is. The next piece of this is that bite-sized better serves your people and performs better too. So something that a lot of people feel like they have to do is give away a ton of value in every single piece of content. And actually, if you give away one piece of advice, one actionable takeaway, or one thing that you're talking about, it's way easier for people to consume. They're more likely to engage with it, and they're more likely to follow you from it. They're actually more likely to use it too, if it's a tip. And so again, they see the value immediately. All right. Wow, I am so sorry that I ran long. Call to action every time, no matter what. So every single piece of content you put out from now on, you have to have a CTA. The reason you have to have a CTA is because even if the CTA, the call to action, is just asking for the follow or pitching your freebie, when you sell, your audience is already used to you having a call to action, right? So we train our audience to engage with our post. So that could be pitching your product, pitching your freebie, asking for the follow, asking for the share, asking them for their opinion, right? Which is better than just like comment if you agree, comment an emoji, right? Like ask them what they think, ask them an actual question, and you're more likely to get that engagement. All right. Some things, these are just quickies. to help you create content quickly, the best way to create content quickly is to know what your best low effort content is. Low effort content does not mean low value content. It means what can you put out in 15 minutes or less. So for me, that's B-roll. B-roll is so easy for me. I just have some video on draft, I throw some text on it. It never takes me more than 15 minutes. Carousel or single slide that you create in stories. If you go look at my content, 90% of my content that is carousel posts or single image posts, I literally create in Instagram stories and I download it. I don't ever go to, I mean, I do sometimes go to Canva, but most of the time I am making it in Instagram stories when I'm walking on the treadmill in the morning. And it takes me less than 15 minutes. I copy and paste the same text into my caption for the SEO benefits of it. Talking heads could be really easy for you. That's just flipping on the camera and talking. And then if you like memes, memes are good for engagement, but have to be super specific to lead to growth. So memes are good for like filling that low effort gap if you like doing them. I am not funny. So memes are not easy for me. Memes are not low effort content for me, but they might be for you. And the best low effort content is content that you have already made. All right. So these are the exact same post in different formats. Both times crushed it. You actually can repost content exactly as is. It should be 3 months old, but I think sometimes we feel like we can't repost things because people have already seen it. And most of the time, most of your audience didn't already see it, right? Maybe half your audience saw it the first time, a different half might see it the next time. And two, I think like when I think about this for myself, I'm like, oh, what is my ego that I think that everybody remembers every piece of content that I've put out? I probably consume 100 pieces of content a day, maybe, right? Just from scrolling. There's no way that I remember every piece of content that people have put out, right? And so number one, you could post exactly as is or with small tweaks. So here you go. The first time I did this post, it was a carousel that I made in Canva. I didn't have time one day. I needed to put up a piece of content. I took this post and threw it onto a single image post that I did on Instagram stories, posted it. It didn't do as well as the first time I posted it, but it still did pretty well. Still performed pretty well. Some time leaks that you might miss. Uh, Spending an hour in Canva. What it looks like matters less than what you say. So if you're finding, now this is, look, if you like making things in Canva or you're very quick in Canva, wonderful. For me, Canva is a mess because I have to download it and then share it to my phone. It's not quick for me. It's quicker for me to create an Instagram stories. So you might have a time leak with Canva. Getting dressed up or made up to film content. If you feel like you have to do that, most of my content, I have no makeup on right now. Most of my content, I look like this. I've got a hat on, I got a sweatshirt. I just flip on and film. I have good light, right? So I look the best that I can. But for a lot of people, that is a distraction, right? Because you feel like, oh, I have to look beautiful in order to put up content. And it actually prevents you from making content because you don't have the time. And what I need you to hear is you don't need to. Like the era that we're in for content right now is authenticity. So if you show up as you are, again, have some good light, but like you don't need to be a certain way, especially if that's not how you are naturally, right? A lot of my best performing videos, this sounds so silly, and I got you, Lynette. A lot of my best performing videos are filmed in my car. It's like me, my seatbelt's off, right? I'm clearly not driving, but it's in my car. It's good light because it's all natural light, but I think it's relatable. I think people like feeling like they're just talking with you on FaceTime. A lot of people I talk to are like, oh, I need to have like 5 different shirts. Most people, right? They're like,
Yeah.
I can't film 3 pieces of content in the same shirt. Most people now, because of the way that algorithms are consuming
Yeah.
your content in a feed. They're not consuming
Yeah.
it on your profile, right? So they're
Okay.
not
Yeah.
seeing you 3 back to back in the same shirt. They're
Right.
seeing one here. Yeah. Multiple retakes is another one that a lot of people feel like they have to do. And what ends up happening is it harms authenticity. So a lot of times when I'm doing talking head content, I will literally film 5 to 7 seconds at a time. That way I only have to retake, right, that 5 to 7 second blurb and it comes off a lot more authentic. And then finally, a time leak that a lot of people miss is scrolling Instagram for new hacks or trending audios, spending hours trying to find the best audio to use. Pick one that's trending that isn't offensive, and it will do fine. Okay, last little thing, and then I am here for questions or to brainstorm or whatever anybody needs. This is on your doc, but a few things. I'm on Instagram. My content creator side is Jen Manley Creates. I share a lot of stuff there. I have two freebies. I have a private podcast that's on Telegram that are just like, I would say 5 to 15 minute audio trainings that I do. It's fun. I get to talk about like things I'm experiencing as a content creator too. So if you're interested in that, it's linked on your doc. I also have a content creator kit. It has a lot of the things that I use that I really like and would recommend. And then I have two ways that you can work with me if you're interested. I'm doing a masterclass in December called Lingo, which is all about specificity. And then I also have a 2 week content kickstart, which is 2 weeks of one-on-one support with me, where we basically are day to day in it, brainstorming content, workshopping content, all of that. And for both of those, if you're interested in either, you can use the code TCS and it'll take 40% off. So those are definite options for you if you want them. And other than that, I am here to answer questions. And thanks for hanging out with me.